Hey photographer, Jessica Whitaker here with my creative director, Bumblebee. We are bringing you behind the scenes on a tutorial comparing an 85mm lens up against a 135mm lens for portrait photography. Today we're going to compare the two different focal lengths so that you have a good idea of what lens you might want to add to your collection or try out next. If you're looking for a very easy to understand tutorial for beginner photographers on something a little bit more technical, this will be a nice refreshing version for you. I'm going to explain everything in the simplest way possible so that you can just feel empowered and encouraged to go out and shoot. Thank you so much to kehcom for gifting us these lenses to use in this tutorial. This really would not be happening without their generosity. Before we hop into the video, I want to share with you my free photography Facebook group, Build and Bloom, which will be linked down below. It's one of Facebook's most highly engaged photography communities of over 60,000 kind, encouraging photographers. You can ask questions about your photography work, receive constructive criticism and insight, or even ask questions about some tricky client situations. It's a great spot for those starting out in photography, and then for also those who are seasoned pros. I'll have it linked down in the description box below.
kehcom is one of the world's largest retailers for buying and selling used camera gear. I personally buy all of my lenses used to keep the costs low. However, it's hard to trust places like Facebook Marketplace, random Instagram stories that a friend sent your way thinking of you, or Craigslist. Lenses are expensive any way that you spin it, so why risk it? With KEH, each piece of equipment that goes on their site is quality checked and ranked so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Shipping is also fast, easy, and really protected, like a lot of bubble wrap. Head to the link in the description box below to explore their inventory of film and digital equipment, or to sell that zoom lens that you haven't touched since 2013. Now let's head to the photo shoot. We're going to start out in full shade overcast lighting with some full body shots to begin nice and simple. I want to share side by side the two different lenses and the focal lengths so that you can see how they interact with the background. The 135 is slightly more blurry, and I am holding these at the exact same angle. You can also see how far away I have to stand with 85 versus the 135. I have to stand further away and almost shout at the model so she can hear me with this focal length. In these shots, I'm shooting with the exact same angle, but you can see how the horizon line actually goes above her head in the 85 versus the 135. It's a little bit more true and exact to what my eyes are seeing. That's something interesting to note and something simple to begin with, and we're going to get into other lighting situations, but right now I'm doing some torso shots. So note how far away I'm standing from Ico, my proximity with the 135 that I'm shooting with now versus the 85mm, and you can see that the difference between these two shots, in my opinion, isn't that significant when it comes to these close-up shots. But when we move into our next setting in the soft backlighting, that's when you'll really see quite a bit of a difference. Now, these portraits are going to be a prime example of not only the compression between the two lenses, and you can get a better feel for it, but also how they handle this backlighting. I do shoot a bit underexposed when it comes to backlighting portraits, just because I know that I can save more of the highlights if I'm underexposed and create more of that creamy look. I don't want it to be too blown out. And you can also see how far away I have to stand from Ico. Sharpness of these lenses are very comparable to each other. They are very sharp, and it's quite easy to focus, and I'm going to talk about the different focusing, the auto versus manual, later on in the video, but I wanted to touch on the sharpness aspect. I want you to take a look at the background here. You can see that the background of the green looks like it is filling up more of the frame in these portraits. That is because of the focal length. The 135 is almost going to stretch the background out just a tiny bit more because it is more compressed. The 85 still looks very beautiful, but I definitely prefer the 135 when it comes to these backlighting portraits. I just think that it is a little bit more appealing and much more creamy. Now we're moving into full body shots, and this is where you can really see how far away you have to stand for the 135 versus the 85. So starting out with the 85mm lens, and then we moved into the 135. And these are going to be a really great example again of how the 135 versus the 85 handles the backdrop. It looks like we are pretty far away with the 85, whereas the 135 in this example shows more of the background being almost stretched out like we are truly closer to her, even though we are actually further away. Again, I'm explaining everything in the simplest way possible, but as you can just see from this visual, the 85 looks like we are further away from her. We get more of the landscape into the shot. The 135, the focus is fully on Ico. I prefer the 135 for this shot in particular because I'm not so interested in the background in this case. I'm interested in the lighting and the movement of her dress and the posing, and I think that the 135 highlights this nicely, and it looks like we are just a few feet in front of her, even though we're right across the street. I think this is my favorite example of the entire shoot because you can truly see how these two different lenses handle the distance and what it will create with your images. And this is a great example of why you might have both lenses in your collection. We're going to move into the next example, but this is just prime where you can really see how you would use the 85 versus the 135. The 85 is on the left, just as a reminder, and the 135 is on the right. And you might favor the 85 for more of those close-up portraits, but if you're wanting to do a full body shot, you can really see how you would probably pick the 135, the example on the right, because it doesn't feel like you're so far away. This would be fantastic for bridal portraits, for senior portraits, or if you are a blogger, fashion blogger, and you're doing a lot of full body shots. Now we're going to move into some sitting poses with backlighting, and then we're going to do some even closer up backlighting shots, truly in golden hour now. But I want to talk about the experience of shooting with the lenses while you guys are watching on the screen. So the Canon 85mm is a heavier lens. It's significantly heavier than the Canon 50mm or a Sigma 35 Art. This lens, both of these, honestly, you're not going to just have on your camera and toss it in your bag when you're going to the pumpkin patch with your family and have it be the one versatile lenses. These two focal lengths are very specific, and you definitely still have to pair it with a 35 or a 50. The Canon 85 has auto and manual focus, while as the Zeiss 135 only is manual focus. I am very familiar shooting on manual focus as I do a lot of film photography, which your only option is manual focus a lot of the time, and I'm very comfortable with it. For those who are intimidated by manual focus, I have good news for you. The Zeiss 135 lens actually has a lot more tension on that whole focus ring than something like a Canon lens that you might use autofocus with, but for whatever reason you've shot with manual and you see that there's a lot of slack on that focus ring. The Zeiss is the perfect amount of a little bit of tension where you can still nail the focus almost every single time, even during lighting situations like this where it's golden hour and the light is directly behind her head. We have a lot of it streaming through that denser background. This shot would be hard to nail with manual focus on something like a Canon lens, but with the Zeiss, it actually is quite simple. So that is something to keep in mind. And the 135 lens isn't something that you're going to just whip out and get a few quick shots with it. You're still going to have to take the step to manually focus it. Both of these lenses, though, feel really nice in the hand, but they are very heavy. That is something to keep in mind. Both of these lenses you're going to have in your kit, but it's not going to be the primary lens you use. In my opinion, these are things that you would add on later to your collection. Here are the final side-by-side comparisons where you can really take time to take a look at the differences between the lighting situations, the posing, the focal length, particularly the compression of the background, and what one you might prefer in your own photography business. If you need to rewind this video, pause it, and really study the differences in the side-by-side comparisons of these lenses to see what might work best for you, I highly encourage you to do so, and I hope that this breakdown was simple and easy to understand.
Oh my gosh, the production quality has stepped on up. Let's recap. Bumblebee, where's the notes? Thank you, Bumblebee. Okay, so the 85 versus the 135. I thoroughly enjoy both. I mean, they are incredible quality, all the technicalities. If you want to know the technical differences between these two lenses, I will have their listing down below through the KEH site. You don't need both, of course you don't. I don't even own either of them, but I could see how you would use them in different situations. So the 85 obviously is a shorter focal length than the 135. So it's probably going to be better. You don't want to be 5 miles away from your client, like we were literally across the street and they can't hear you. But then when you do those close-up shots, they're still very beautiful, but I prefer the 135 for those close-up shots. I feel like if you, this is a little bit off topic, but if you're a blogger, you would really love the 85 because you don't have to get as far away. And you're a blogger.
Kinda.
She said, link down below, please. Because you shoot with a 50, right? So would you consider shooting with 85 for some like outfit photos and stuff?
Oh, 100%. I think it's just like, I didn't know how to use an 85.
Yeah.
And so you shooting me and then showing me the photo afterwards, super helpful. So I'll consider it.
Yeah, it's really nice because it also doesn't distort you. So something, a 50 doesn't really, but a 35 millimeter, like what we're filming this on, will distort. So you do have to adjust it. Whereas the 85 truly looks like what your body is. You know, it's very also sharp too. The Canon is very sharp, and it has autofocus option. Now the 135 only is a manual focus, so if you're not used to that, then it might be a little bit of an adjustment. But if you shoot film, you'll be fine. I shoot film, and I used to shoot manual on my Mark II a lot, and it actually wasn't even that finicky. It wasn't like super slippery to do. It was very, very easy, which means that you have more control over the image, like in the very last shots we were doing, the backlighting. It was super easy. So in a recap, should you buy them? Sure, if you have the financial ability to go for it and get both, go for it. They can definitely both be used now in different situations. Now, you could purchase them used and it kind of reduces that price tag. But I would say if you are somebody who just does a lot of portrait work, or if you're a blogger or social media influencer and you really want that like nice creamy bokeh super compressed background, I would say 85 is going to be great because you're not going to get it as far away. Now if you're doing a lot of senior portraits, bridal portraits, I would say go for the 135. I would say, look, if you have a 35 and you're trying to decide, should I get a 50, should I get an 85, go for the 85. If you have a 50 millimeter and you're trying to decide and that's your only lens, 85 or 135, I say go for the 135. All right, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and that you have a good idea of what lens you might be interested in trying out next. I'm here every single week creating free tutorials for you and your business, so be sure to hit subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you're notified when a new tutorial rolls out for you. I also have my Instagram account where I share daily tips and tricks and resources for growing your business. And of course, the Facebook group is also linked down below, as well as my online photography workshop. So if you're wanting to take it one step further with your photography business and learn A to Z how to market yourself to your dream clients in your own backyard, I'll have my workshop linked down below. It has helped so many people and blessed so many photography businesses, and I can't wait for you to get into the program. Until next time, Bumblebee and I say goodbye, and we'll see you in my next video. Well, you did so amazing.
Thank you.
So good. Bumblebee and I mean, Bumblebee is really satisfied with this shoot.
Yes.
That's the creative director. What do you think, Bumblebee? We need the video to be 10 seconds, 10 minutes, 10 seconds long.